I quit my job to take control of my time. Things in my life have been a little bit difficult lately and pretty shitty ultimately. I was working a job that took a lot of my time from me. It was a big investment. I had to spend a lot of hours on the ground doing something that I wasn't particularly fond of. And honestly, it just kind of feels like I burned through a lot of my clock doing that. Like, it'd be one thing if I was spending a lot of time, working for anything and, I was getting rewarded by being paid a lot. But the reality is, the job I was doing wasn't paying very well. So in turn, I just kind of spent a lot of time doing nothing productive. One of the big philosophies that I've kind of picked up over the last several years is that I really just want to enjoy my time and kind of live every moment to the fullest. As goofy and cliche as that kind of sounds, having some people in my life would just pass away. I had some friends in high school who, they passed prematurely, and it was kind of like a centering point. I've talked to some of my friends, the homies I have here in the barbershop, it's my guy. It's my brother right here. Like, life is valuable and time is valuable. So I just want to make sure that I use it wisely. That being said, the job I was doing, while I didn't like it that much, it was pretty insightful. There's a lot of things that I learned from it, both skill set wise and just life wise. There's always life lessons you can take away from basically everything. But the biggest thing is that I burnt more time than I needed to, and I have to be a lot more wise. The one biggest thing that should be the takeaway from this video is that time is a currency, and it is the only currency that you can never get back. And so what I mean by that is, like I said, over the last few months at least with this job, and even over the last few years, I feel like I've burned through a lot of my time and a lot of that currency. Either doing things that I didn't want to do or wasting it on things that I wanted to do that ultimately aren't going to help me or benefit me realistically in any way. Truthfully, the amount of time I've just wasted, like doom scrolling or talking and thinking about things and never putting it into action, is quite a lot, and realistically way more than it ever should be. And a lot of those things kind of tend to go unnoticed, right? The 10 to 15 minutes you might spend just scrolling on IG Reels, those add up. It's like, again, if you think about time like a currency, imagine just sitting there burning dollars whenever you weren't actively doing something. Like, if I got off of work at 5 p.m., right? I work my regular 9 to 5, and after my drive home, however long that is, I just sit there in my car for an additional 10 to 15 minutes burning dollar bills. Like, it sounds funny when you say it like that, but that's essentially what you do with your time. Every time you sit there and do nothing with it, really, And I'm not gonna act like I'm not definitely a chronic doom scroller. That is very much my reality. And I'm sure it is the same for a lot of other people, especially in the age range of the early 20s, right?
Well, I noticed that probably a good amount ago, like, I've been pretty locked, not even as a person, for a while. So that was a big thing, bro, that thinking about. That's why I hate the phrase, like, people are like, I don't have time for that. 90% of people have time. You look at your screen time over down 3 hours on your phone a day, you got time, bro.
Yeah.
The amount of time, the whole thing, like, you go home from work, like that shit, like the car shit, bro. The amount of people that do that, not probably, that do that.
That
shit
definitely do
actually,
that.
exactly.
It's horrible.
Like, I feel like that's such. I can tell you what I do with every, like, no joke. That's kind of go. I can tell you to the minute from the time I wake up what. Yeah. It's like once you get, and then you get that dialed in, it just makes everything. It's like your day is fully plotted out. And if you know you need to do something, you put it into the already so seen.
Yeah. And for those of you guys who don't know who this is Elijah, one of my best friends in the world, and a very successful barber, right? He has been one of these guys who's been on top of this for, how many years have you been, like, cutting hair at this point?
Well,
yeah, so technically been cutting since COVID started, right? That was 2020. At the time of this video, it's 2026, so about 6 going on 7 years in the business, and he's, we grew up very much the same. Like, this is one of my closest, this is my closest friend of the last, like, decade at this point, and, I know that's weird to say, but, we grew up doing the same things, and that's why we become such close friends. But big thing that's got him to this level of being like super successful is that over the last couple of years, you just really locked in. And I remember all the conversations we had that you were telling me, like, you're cutting out certain things that, weren't pushing you forward at all. And I think, like you said, the biggest thing is just in taking control of your own time.
Like that's one of the big around all the very successful people while I'm cutting, they just come in and out of the barbershop, either my clients, not my clients, whatever. You'll never see one of those people that are extremely successful that are ever the, oh, let me chill guys. It's always, bro, I want all the time. They're just never chill out. Yeah, they will not chill out. And that's one thing I've kind of adopted, especially being around a damn multi-millionaire. And that's.
Is it who I think it is? Okay. Yeah.
Doing all right.
Doing all right. Hey, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. But, the last couple of things when it comes to time being a currency is that when you put it in the reference of it being an actual currency, like I said, it holds way more weight in people's minds. And so most people in their lives will trade time for money, right? It's like everything else. It is a currency. Currency is used to exchange for goods, right? And your time is one of them. And with that, you can use time to buy knowledge and experience, but you can't ever get it back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And so when it comes to looking at time in that framework, you have to make a budget. You have to find a way to budget your time. And for the most part, when it comes to human beings, we're kind of capped out around 80 to 90 years. For some people, that could be a lot more if you have great health or great genetics, but some people that could even be cut short for whether it's health reasons or things that are completely out of our control. And so when you think about that, you always want to kind of budget accordingly. And in order to do that, you really want to figure out what your priorities are.
Talk louder on face of the camera.
I know. I just kind of talk louder in general.
Start talking loud. It's all your chest, man.
Fair enough. It's mostly trying to talk over the buzzing.
You'll be surprised. It's almost like white.
Fair. Very fair. True.
Like way louder.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't even notice it when I'm in the barbershop. But when it comes to budgeting and finding out what your priorities are, it usually comes down to a few kinds of people. There's a lot of people, especially for young folks. I guess that's the general demographic of, who I'm writing these videos for. But a lot of us want to live and have fun while we're young. And so the budget for that tends to come in large gaps between work, and you want to have quality experiences. So you're going to work a whole lot. So you trade a lot of your time in, big windows, and then suddenly you have a lot more to spend. In that case, that's when, people like to go on trips. They'll go on, 5 to 10 day trips to another state or out of the country, And those people, they might not always have, a lot of finances for the future, or they might not plan accordingly to the future, but also they use the time that they have, geared for the now. And you can't really fault people for that. I definitely understand that. On top of that, just on the average week to week, you save your time for the weekends and then use it accordingly. Does that make sense? And another type of person and how they're going to budget would be, long-term investors, right? I think for the most part here in the United States, a lot of us are kind of told to plan for retirement one way or another. Does that sound about right?
I think it sounds about right. I think especially now in our demographic, kind of go, starting to lean the way of, damn, they're allocating to the travel fund stuff, even if it costs payments, if it costs whatever, if they got to get a credit card that they want.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a line that I've kind of been towing myself, right? Because again, we spent most of our lives being told like, hey, plan for your retirement, save, right? But with the economy being the way it is at this point in time, it just feels, and let me put emphasis on feels, like it's going to be very difficult to have any kind of future. So, for a lot of people in our age group, it's like, why would I kind of waste all my time saving up for the later if it doesn't matter, and if it might not even be there? Because like I said, your lifetime, the amount of time that you have in your life, I should say, could run out at any point. All it takes is one dude who decided to get too drunk and drive in his car, and suddenly you're out of time.
I had to start balancing a little better with myself. I feel like not this past year, but the year before, like 2020, 2024, I was almost like, I wouldn't say too locked on work. Like, I wanted to get my career really going. I wanted to make a lot of money. But then it became one of those things where it's like, damn, bro, imagine I have all this savings, all this money, all this investments, and I'm driving home fast in my car one day and I just die, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what am I about to get? All that saving, all that money, and then
For
now
nothing.
I got to give it to that.
Are you cutting my tape? Or, I mean, I don't even have a front tape, but fair enough. I was trying to grow those out, but barber knows best.
I'm not cutting
Fair enough. But yeah, and then the people who do try to still invest in their future, you know, it is. Time is a currency, and it always functions a lot like how you earn and spend your money. But it's like you invest heavily into your work time for 40 years or whatever it is, when most people try to retire at like 60. Is that like the average retirement time? 59 and a half. That's when most people aim to retire, but most people here don't do that, at least not in that time frame. But if you invest early, you might get the chance to. But you might retire at 30. That's very realistic at this point. But one of the next group of priorities, I guess, the next group of people and what their priorities are would be impulse spenders. And these are probably the most common. You know, we did talk about people who kind of want to live more for the present, you know, enjoy their, you know, trips, you know, live while they're young. This type is probably a lot more accurate to what young people are like, and that's impulse spenders. So these are the people who doom scroll a lot, who, you know, kind of live moment to moment. So at any given time, it's like, hey, I might just go. Honestly, I can't even think of examples other than like, I'm gonna spend several hours playing games, or I might just go to the club, get drunk, and then kind of deal with the consequences later. And on top of that, when you don't budget your time very well and you're very impulsive with it, you end up spending a lot more of your time dealing with the repercussions. Like, you know, I kind of gave an example earlier. You know, your time can get cut short by a drunk driver. That drunk driver didn't think very much about how they were going to spend their time. And then now they have to deal with either losing the rest of theirs, whether that's by dying or having to go through the court system and very likely get heavy consequences of spending a good chunk of your life in jail for manslaughter or something like that. You know, that's another good example of that. Why it's important to be very on top of it. And so, like I said, you want to be very wary of your time and wasting it. You know, I'll always go back to the analogy of burning bills. You know, if you're not doing anything productive, you're just burning the bills away and burning your time. So try to account for that, and try to account for emergency situations beforehand so you can avoid burning the unnecessary time. So that basically means take care of things when you do have the time right now. Like procrastination, I think that's a good example. You procrastinate on things too much, that's, it's wasting time to prevent burning time. Like, let me think about this. It's like a 20-minute transaction of, you know, making the phone call to take care of, I don't know, your electric bill or something. Like, you have to pay a fine. You don't want to take the 15 minutes to actually go on the website and do that. Somehow, it's actually a parking ticket. That's a great example. You know, you don't want to take the 15 minutes it takes to either call about your parking ticket or go to court for it and, you know, get it disputed. And instead it just sits, and then you build up the fines.
Or fast, like the parking fine before you get the parking fine. You don't, I'm just running to the store real quick. I don't need to scan that QR code and pay the money real quick. Oh, we're gonna eat real quick. It'll take 45 minutes. It takes literally 2 seconds. But then now what? Sitting with a $50 charge to get off your damn $50 ticket from the damn
DMV or whatever.
DMV or the parking meter police.
Yeah, and a recent real life example that actually just happened to me. Yeah, I told him about it, but I didn't buy a parking pass in the city that I moved to. You know, I live in Portland, and I didn't buy a parking pass at the time. And so I was just trying to park around my apartment building, and at one point I was 5 minutes away from getting in my car, and 5 minutes before that, the meter maid or whatever they're called got to my car and gave me a $65 parking ticket. So to get a parking pass, it costs $120 for a year. And instead of me just paying that, taking the time to be like, I don't want to, but I will, and pay that parking ticket, I got stuck with half of that for a one-time transaction, and I still had to pay the $120 for the parking pass. So that's kind of just a pretty small example of take care of things ahead of time so you don't have to waste it later on. And so, after talking about all that for however long I've been talking about it, the biggest thing you want to do is set real goals. And so, we talked about setting your budget, and you have to set those goals for yourself as well so you actually know what you're budgeting for. So it'll help you paint a bigger picture of how to do that, because if you don't set, real goals or set a budget, you're just going to end up wasting time not planning anything. And so, for example, if I had a business plan or a business idea and, it's just an idea, but I never actually take the time to build out that plan and see what it actually is going to look like, the steps that I need to take, it's just going to sit there and not progress further. And then so that's just time you're burning instead of building. And so that's why I finally, after all this time, cemented my goals and really figured out what they are. And so for my goals, the biggest thing I want to do is find a way to earn my time as quickly as possible. And when I say that, I know I said you'll never be able to get that time back. I want to make sure that going forward, I have my time available. So whether that's the time to do nothing, or rest, I should say, which is accounted for, because in that instance, it's specific. It's what I want instead of just doing nothing without a plan. Does that make sense?
Dude, that's legit. I won't say the whole reason I'm doing this is the big never in our lives, but the secondary thing is that's been my biggest brainstorm as of late. Why I'm doing the investment property, why I'm all this stuff with the duplexes, with the Roth, with all the investments I ever done. That exactly what you just said with the earning your time back. Like I want to be able at work or doing whatever I'm doing, be like, I want to do this, I want to do that, and then financially, budget wise, time wise, and budget wise IRL, or like budget wise, time wise, and budget wise in real life, that won't be the thing that's stopping me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like you're saying,
you have the freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's one of the biggest. But I feel like everyone has certain financial goals, like time budget wise, real budget wise. But at the end of the day, it is to be able to have like full control over both. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like you're saying, I'm never worried about earning my time. Like my time is my time, my money is my money, and those two things are never going to be something to stop me from what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Like you can afford to do what you want now.
Exactly, and that's something that the vast majority of people, not even just here in the United States, but across the world, just don't have. It's a luxury.
Yeah, if not more.
Exactly. And again, like when we talk about time being a currency, that's something you realize with people who are very wealthy is they always have the freedom of their time. Even those guys who choose to work really hard and run their businesses, like someone like Jeff Bezos. Firstly, I'm not big on corporations or billionaires, but at the same time, when it comes to Jeff Bezos, he's earned his time. Exactly.
Like that, because that's the crazy part. It's like, oh, he's so rich. But the biggest rich thing, like what we'd all replace, obviously the money wise, but the fact that at the end of the day, bro could literally disappear off the face of the map right now and do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. You know what I'm saying? Like he has the biggest budget time wise, because they almost correlate like utterly and completely. Where your time budget and money budget are in this world is just one and the same, bro.
Exactly. And so the second big goal that I personally have is to invest, my time into my business early so that, like I said, I can have more of that time later. And, every rich, I would say, ultra rich, ultra wealthy business owner or CEO or founder, whatever you want the title to be, they all do that early and then they scale it. And then afterwards they have the time and they have all the freedom in the world to do whatever they want.
Yeah, like I promise you ask damn near, unless it's inheritance or unless like we were talking about the gym the other night where it's like quick tech money, like obviously not quick, but like young tech money. Other than that, every single one of them will tell you, yeah, my entire, like, they ain't going to parties, they ain't doing it. They might go to that, like, you know what I'm saying? The budget of their time went into the bid, like the entirety of their savings, of all their time, everything, budget. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when you're doing that, it kind of goes back to, the the types of people and how they want to budget. And those are the people who plan for the long term. And sometimes that long term isn't even that long, but it's the investment early, and then they see the returns, either early or they have massive returns. Again, it's like a stock. Everything, time and money are kind of one and the same. And, the more you talk about it, the more that makes sense. But you invest early, you get bigger returns later on. Compound. There you go. Yeah. And then the last goal that I have is going to be spending the proper time maintaining my health. Because over the last few years, I grew up being athletic, and that's, the one thing I always pride myself on and always want. But the last few years, my health has kind of fell off a cliff. Whether that's, freak injuries or, my getting sick more often because of what I eat, how much sleep I'm getting, a lot of bad habits. I want to make sure I take the time to really invest into myself. And so, the business stuff, the money stuff, that's one thing. That's one thing I can really, allocate my time towards. But I think by far the biggest thing that will kind of feed into all that too, and just my livelihood in general, is just taking the time to take care of myself. Taking the time to take care of myself. Whether that's, working more so that I can afford to eat better, or just sleeping more in general, sleeping better. I think stuff like that will kind of set me forward in the best, and maybe even taking more time to, in the gym, or spend more time, playing basketball, whatever it might be. Just invest my time into my health.
Not looking to hike all this stuff, all your body can't even keep up with it.
Exactly. Yeah. But that's the biggest thing that I've been thinking about lately, and I want to be able to let other people know about this. While this isn't an educational video by any means, it's always an opinion piece, but this is just how I feel, and I feel inclined to let other people know about it. But
the power guys constantly, they don't want as much as those.
Exactly. Know about all that. But at the end of the day, if I can help somebody else going forward, I'll gladly do so. But I don't know.